we are now ready to meet and engage with a very fun speaker, Kobla Tetey. We're super grateful that he landed here in Austin. I see him with his whiteboard. He is ready to go. He's going to lead us through some fun activities. He's here to share his thoughts on the intersection of creativity and divergent. Welcome, Kobla.
Hello. Well, Ben, thank you for the introduction. I greatly appreciate it. You guys got me up early in the morning. I'm typically up this early, but I feel, I typically don't have cameras in my living room, so this is a little bit different. But I definitely appreciate you all bringing me on to speak. So I do have an activity for everybody to start off. So, you segued earlier to say that I was going to utilize the breakout rooms. I most certainly am going to use the breakout rooms. So I'm going to preface that with the game Uno. So I hope that everybody on this call knows the game Uno. If someone doesn't know the game Uno, I'm gonna give you a brief description of what Uno is. You have cards, there are 4 colors, you match numbers, and then you have action cards, right? And the objective is to be the first person who gets rid of all your cards. Well, what I'd like you guys to do is something a little bit different. Just imagine that maybe you were in an area that typically has a warm climate and all of a sudden there's a snowstorm. And the electricity's out, and maybe you don't have any water. You just have to be creative in the home. What I would like you guys to do is I'd like you to go into your breakout room, knowing the rules of Uno, and pretend that you have amnesia and you lost the rules. And what I would like you to do is I would like you to create a brand new game using the same Uno cards or the premise behind Uno. So when you get into your breakout rooms, you will introduce yourself with your name, where you're from, so everybody gets to know you. But one thing I would like you to do also is pick a person in the room and just tell them that you love them. So name, where you're from, pick a person in the room, tell them that you love them, and come up with a game. You'll have 5 to 7 minutes to utilize this as a baseline, and you'll create your own game using the Uno cards. We'll come back and Ann will select one of the groups, and you'll read out, so to speak, what exactly you all came up with, and then I'll go into my little spiel. So, Ann, take it away, and I appreciate it. All right, so Ann, I know you're going to be the one that selects the one group.
I'm happy to report that went great. That was super fun.
So much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, listen, we'll see when we hear what you created. But we'll go from there. So whenever Ann, you pick a team, I would love to hear what the team was able to come up with.
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty good about room 5, which was Angel, Chantal, Scott, our own Ben Toma and Kim Tidwell might have been in there, but I
know Angel has our team's version ready to go.
I guess our game, we could call it in beta Uno Upon a Time. And it's a collaborative storytelling game where whatever card you have to incorporate the elements from that card. So if it's color, number, we didn't talk about shape, I'm not sure if that's a thing, or a word that's on the card, then you incorporate that into a sentence that is added to a collective ongoing story throughout the game. And there was some suggestion that maybe you need to recite or remember what came before that so that you can continue with the context. And it's an everybody wins in Ben's word game, collaborative game, to where you end up with everyone wins because everyone gets that story and that benefit.
Uno Upon a Time, huh?
Yeah, that's what we're going with. Sorry, that wasn't democratic. I just spun that out.
That was beautiful, Angel. I love that addition. That's so wonderful.
That is cool. So I have to say that's pretty complex for 5 minutes. I give you a head nod, a little salute.
We had a real power brain trust happening.
Right. That is awesome. Well, I appreciate you all for participating. I wanted to make it a little bit interactive, just not to sit here and listen to what I had to say. So I appreciate you all participating in that activity. And the premise, as I go into some of the details, it's a construct of something that we know that's taken a normal path, and you diverge from that path and do something that's totally different. And as you'll see, what I'll try to communicate today is how in my life those things are intersected and how they intersect in various things that happen that we all can relate to. So first and foremost, I want to tell everybody my name. My name is Kobla Tetey. My name actually means Tuesday, so Kobla means Tuesday, and my middle name means greatness has arrived. So when I was born, my dad said, hey, greatness has arrived. So that's the origin of my name. It actually comes from Ghana, and my tribe is Ewe, and the tribe I'm from, or the village, is called Agbozome. So Agbozome means ram's horn, and supposedly my grandfather, he was walking and trying to survey where the village was going to be, and he saw the ram's horns coming out of the dirt, and so he said, that's the place. So just to give you a little bit of background. So now, let's go into our talk, or our topic of conversation, which is divergent, and how it's impacted me and how it's impacted creativity. So first thing I did was, of course, look up the word divergent. And what I love about definitions is, you ever look up a definition and you look up the word divergent, and it's like, or a word, and it's like the act of diverging. I'm like, come on, man, can I get a definition here? What are we doing here? So anyways, that was the first thing he said, but the dictionary. But after I found some things, I got some more insight. So divergent is having no finite limit, and then tending to be different or develop in a different direction. And that is something that I would say that I've embodied in my life, because I was taught that way. And I'll go through some of the things that led me to be the way that I am, because I actually love breaking the rules, and I don't like conforming, and moving in some way that's different than everybody else, and I'm 100% comfortable with that. So we'll talk about that. So the first kind of topic I have is from John Coltrane to Jay-Z. And so John Coltrane, I'm not sure if you all are aware who John Coltrane is. If you don't, I'm going to play a little clip of who John Coltrane is, but he was a saxophonist back in the day, very dynamic. So let me play the clip first, and then I'll go into some of the details. Hold on. Get a little remote here. And if you've ever heard this before, just maybe nod your head or smile or just take it in. All right, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but that's John Coltrane. So, if you don't know about him, please look him up. But what made John Coltrane distinct? And I'm going to tell you how I got to John Coltrane. My mother loves jazz. So as a child, she always played jazz in the house. And she loves John Coltrane. But it's always like, what made John Coltrane different or distinct? And John Coltrane is one of the founders of freeform. So he would change chord progressions and do things that were totally different than how other people did it. And those differences are things that allowed him to be recognized. And what we learn, to me, throughout life is the people who typically have the differences, that's when we pay attention, and that's the distraction. So for me, it started with John Coltrane, and I said, we love music. I feel like as people, we love music. Music is this, you remember a song that played back in this time, and it brings back memories. It's nostalgic. But the funny thing about music is we love change, and at the same time, we hate change. And so how does that work with Divergent? So we can all think about a new artist, somebody who was brand new that came out and you loved them. Whether it was, for me, it was like Nas, or a hip hop artist, or even a rock band. And I was like, I love that artist. They're freaking awesome. They're new, they're dynamic. But what happens when they're 8 albums in? What's the old saying we say? They just don't do it the same as the first album. And you're like, well, man, you loved them when they came out, but now that they're 8 albums in, it's gotten a little stagnant. And you're like, I don't know. They just need to go back to the beginning formula. So it's funny how that dynamic works. When they first came out, we embraced the change, we loved it, and that divergence. But when they started to do the same thing and it got familiar to us, we're like, unless they're just a dope band and they're able to recreate themselves over and over again. So, like I said, my mother loves jazz, and that's kind of how I started with John Coltrane. And as I stated, different stands out until it doesn't. So routine is stagnant, but distraction is how we learn. So typically, if we've done something in a routine manner, it becomes just a norm. You wake up and you do things on a daily basis that are just, whether it's brush your teeth, put the gel in your hair, put on your clothes a certain way, it's the exact same way every single day. And until there's a distraction, that's when you become aware, i.e. this little winter storm that we had in Texas, where we became very aware of how good or bad our system is and what needs to be improved. So my journey on difference. And my journey on difference kind of started really early. Me personally, the first school I ever went to was called Roots. Thus the shirt that I have on, see the sweater, Roots. It was Roots Activity Learning Center. And Roots was in Washington, D.C., and it was a very Afrocentric school. And my father actually picked that school. And what was distinct about that school is all of the teachers, we didn't call them teachers, we called them mama and baba, so we called them mother and father. We were learning Spanish at a young age. I was being taught the Black National Anthem when I was 2 years old. They were doing karate in the basement. Everything about the school is Afrocentric, you know what I mean, the colors. We were taught to embrace our origins, and that in itself was different. And I didn't know at the time, but I was learning to embrace difference at a very young age. And that is something that started at Roots Activity Learning Center, and clearly it's taken a hold with me. I was taught that difference was normal, and that was supported by community and family. So whatever we participated in, whatever we walked through, there was always a support system there. And there were always people there to guide you and push you in that direction. Even though it may not be the norm, there was always a level of support. And my mother always reinforced that environment, whether it was the video game or the games that she got me. My mother was very cognizant about giving me comic books that talked about Black history. If you guys, I'm a little older, I don't know how old everybody is on here, but if you remember action figures, He-Man and all that, everybody was getting He-Man. Well, I got Sunman. Sunman was a part of the He-Man group, but he was African American and he was powered by the sun. And so while everybody else was playing with a different toy, I'm outside playing with Sunman. I'm like, hey, he don't have to stick a sword up. He gets his power from the sun. So I don't know what's going on with your little toy over there, but mine's a little bit different. And I was taught to embrace that. So that was fostered once again by my parents. So let's teleport that back to music, right? So how did I get into music? So me personally, I've actually gotten into music. And Ben didn't mention this, but I actually went to school for audio engineering, which actually led me to work at a place called the Hit Factory down in Miami. And through the Hit Factory, I was able to work with a multitude of artists. And how that started was I just had the idea. I've always liked music from my mother's influence and various different things. I was like, I want to do music. But I knew that I wasn't an artist. I wasn't a singer. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get into this game. And I was like, oh, I got an idea, engineering. So I ended up, when I finished undergrad, went to school for audio engineering and went to work at the Hit Factory. So ironically enough, John Coltrane and Jay-Z, as we talk about music, because I was able to do something and once again diverge from the path, because I once again did not know how I was going to get there and how I was going to get into music. I just know I wanted to get there. I found a way to do that and ended up working with a multitude of artists, including Mr. Jay-Z himself. So that's my first little stint of John Coltrane to Jay-Z. So how does that journey continue to move? So as you guys see, if you see, I drew on the board. Disregard the symmetry on the lines. You know what I mean? Just take in the color, okay? I just need you to take in the color. All right, so the symmetry of the lines, that led to the I don't knows, okay? And it's funny about I don't knows, or one thing I think about I don't knows is as a kid, we're always taught to say, you say, hey, what's 2 plus 2? I don't know. Well, you need to know. You better get it together, young man. Jeez. You go into class, you do anything, you're like, what's the science answer? I don't know. We get in trouble for that. But what's funny is that I don't knows are something to be embraced. And along this journey that I've taken for myself, and a journey of creativity, it's always been a vision and somewhere where I wanted to go, but I didn't always know how I was going to get there. So it was learning to embrace the I don't knows. So I wrote on here outcome versus journey. A lot of times we're taught, and I was taught, hey, you got to get here, you got to get there. But once you get there, what happens? You got to go somewhere else, right? And we're taught to look at the outcome and the thing that's going to happen, or that end thing, and embrace that. But ultimately, we learn that as we get to that end thing, it becomes something else. And the journey is the step, and the journey is the thing to be embraced. And along the way of that journey, there are a lot of I don't knows. How you going to get here? I don't know. If you told me years ago that I would live in Texas, in Austin, Texas, and be speaking to you on this forum of Creative Mornings, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm from Washington, D.C. You know, we love the Redskins. I don't know how you think I'm going to move to Texas. This is ridiculous. But those I don't knows, or those things, or those pathways still make themselves clear. And the thing was to make sure that along the way, enjoy the journey. So that's one thing that I've learned to embrace in my creative journey. Another thing I wrote down here is your win is not always your win. So as I've gone through different steps about things that I was trying to accomplish, or things that I was trying to achieve, whether it was working at the hit factory or working with major artists, whether it was moving, whether it was getting a promotion. I noticed that sometimes when I wanted something to happen wasn't exactly when it actually happened. And so what I stated is like your win or what you want to achieve doesn't always happen at the time. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It's just a different part of the journey once again. And that's a lesson that I learned walking through life myself. Whether it's, like I said, once again, going to music school or doing something totally different, i.e. doing a bodybuilding competition because I think I could be disciplined enough to do it. You know what I mean? Going to music school, not knowing when I was going to go, working with an artist or working in a major studio and working with certain artists, beginning to produce music, going from there to do something totally different and move to Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know how I got there, but those things added up, and those wins and that dynamic of I don't knows and being comfortable with that change allow for creativity to stem and me still embrace the journey along the way. So last but not least, or not last but not least, that journey of I don't knows also segued into Texas. So how did we get here? So Ben kind of mentioned it, so I'm gonna give you the whole breakdown. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., went to school. We moved from Washington, D.C. and moved to South Florida. South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. And that's where I went to high school. When we got to Fort Lauderdale, I was like, well, I got to get the hell out of here. I don't know what's going around here, but this is not where I want to be. So after high school and finishing up high school, I went back up to Maryland to go to school again. So then I'm in school, I finished school, and fortunately that decision, which was also a decision that diverted from what my friends were doing, because everybody was going to school at a Florida school, you know what I mean, in-state tuition. And in-state tuition at the time for myself was like, I think it was like $1,700 a semester. I could have had 18,000 degrees for like the amount of money that I paid to go to the University of Maryland. But anyways, I diverged from the path and I went up north. And so when I went up north, I went to the University of Maryland. I also started there, but I finished at an HBCU. So I was able to get the experience of a PWI, a predominantly white institution, and an historically black college. And if I had stayed in Florida, I wouldn't have gotten that experience. And it allowed me to see the dynamic of both worlds. And I was very appreciative of that. So from there, once again, I told you all I was working on going to do music. So I said, I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I wanna go to this school down in Florida. Ended up doing that and moved to Orlando, Florida. So I was in Orlando, went to school for audio engineering. And then I knew I wanted to go work at a major studio. And that major studio originally was in New York City. But the New York City office closed. And then I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna go now, because the place I wanted to go, the path I wanted to go, it's not lining up. Come to find out, there was an alternate studio that was a subsidiary of that New York studio in Florida. So I ended up going back to the place that I tried to get out of. I was like, oh, how did I end up back here in South Florida? Long story short, I'm back in South Florida. I get there, work at the studio, and I was like, if I'm working at this and I'm working in music, I'll stay in Miami. But if I'm not, I'm getting out of here. 2 years later, didn't know the timing, moved out and moved to Atlanta. Didn't know what I was going to do in Atlanta, but my best friend lived in Atlanta. Ironically, I met my best friend at Roots Activity Learning Center when I was 2 years old. So the same school I told you about, that's where I met my best friend who actually lives in Atlanta. And we're still friends to this day. So anyways, I moved to Atlanta. I get a job with this company, work with it, and at that company I was able to get promoted. So I continued to get promoted over and over again and got promoted faster than anyone in the company. And I'm in Atlanta getting real comfortable, feeling all good. You know what I mean? I'm in Atlanta. I was like, oh, I love it here. It's good. And about 9 months into a new role, my boss is like, hey, what do you think about going to Dallas, Texas? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have only been working in this position for 6 months. Why are you trying to get rid of me? So he says it over and over again. Hey, you should think about Dallas. You should think about Texas. Long story short, I moved to Texas. I took that opportunity, and Dallas is what brought me to Austin. Now that I've been in Austin, I've been president of the Austin Area Urban League Young Professionals. And if I hadn't taken the journey or the different paths that I've taken and done the various things, I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I am currently, which is in Austin, Texas, creating something to get young minority professionals into housing easier. I see Austin and this community as an opportunity to showcase to the world something that can be done dynamically that allows the whole community to embrace and for the whole community to benefit. And as I was moving here and seeing the amount of young professionals or minorities that lived in the city, I was like, there's an opportunity. And seeing how many own houses, I saw that as another opportunity. So once again, I diverged paths again, and I said, look, there's a system in place currently in terms of housing that I feel like it needs to be broken. And there's a way for everybody to participate. So we were able to create Break the Box, which is an opportunity zone fund to get young minority professionals into housing here in Austin. And we're doing that utilizing a mechanism that allows both not only the stakeholders or the people to invest to make money, but also for young professionals to be moved into housing at the same time. So you have an impact that benefits the investor as well as an impact that benefits the community. And to me, it's all about making an equity ecosystem. And long story short, all the paths that I walked in my life, all the various things that I've been able to take in and do led me to being here. And the thing that we've been able to create here is because of the journey. So I've been able to embrace the journey, which has allowed me to get here, embrace the changes, whether they go up or down. It's not about, being too high or being too low, but just embracing the change and know that everything ebbs and flows. And fortunately, that's how we got here currently. I'm greatly and supremely appreciative for the journey that I've taken along the way, appreciative for the community that has supported me along the way, and I'm just happy to be here. So, Ben, that's all I got from a little 20 minutes, but I greatly appreciate you all giving me a little bit of time.
I was saying to everyone, like, in just a few years, and take any chunk of your life in few years chunks, and you've experienced more change than most people get to experience in their lifetime. We're going to invite everyone to ask you questions. You can either raise your hand in the participants pane or post a question in the chat. We'll try to get you on live. I'll take the first one while everyone's getting a chance to think of a question they might want to ask you. But, I think when we talked, you mentioned something to me. Maybe you can share with the group here. What do you think enabled you to have, what was the most important part of your life that enabled you to have this perspective that on change as it came? For a lot of people, you mentioned change is hard. You seem to embrace it better than most. What parts of your life impacted you to cause you to have that kind of perceptive outlook?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, it's definitely, and I wrote it currently. If you see throughout the whole my little drawing here, I put community, you know what I mean, throughout the whole thing. And so whether it was my grandfather, who was always super supportive, no matter what I was doing, whether it was my mother, who was super supportive, no matter what I was doing, whether it was my best friend and my contingency of friends that supported me no matter what I was doing, they saw that I had a vision and they supported me regardless of whether it was the path that is traditionally the quote unquote right path or me doing something different. And it's funny, I was on a call recently with my best friend and his uncle. So my best friend has this little call every other Friday, and it's just a game night with his family. And Uncle Johnny was on the call. And I got on there, it was my birthday. So Uncle Johnny was like, hey, everybody's like, hey, happy birthday. And Uncle Johnny was like, I was telling him about the idea and what we're trying to do with the community. And he's like, yeah, so you always been this way. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, since you were a child, you've been like this. And I knew that you would move in this manner. And so I think that support system, Ben, for me has been extremely critical. And that community aspect of someone always helping. And then me being showcased that community. When community works together, there's no bounds. There's no limits. Everybody wins. So that scarcity model, it goes out the window when you have community. And so I think I was always shown that and I was always showcased that. And so I always have that no matter where I go, or try to build that and just show love and be genuine with each individual and look at people like they are myself and where can I see myself in each person. And that allows me to connect and always have a support system. So I think that has allowed me to realize that the journey it's going to be the way it goes. I got people with me. I have my ancestors with me. I have my friends with me, my family with me. We're just going to keep on walking. So I would say that's it, man.
That's awesome. I'm glad you told the story about the uncle, because I think all of us can relate to having someone in our life who sees something that we never see until we get there, right? So great that you had that supportive community throughout, and it's certainly something that I'm more aware of at my age as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm in that place you mentioned before where I'm a little older now, it feels like. Selena's commenting yes to the ancestors. amazing that you know such a richness of your history. It's great that you're bringing that with you. So Angel's got a question here. Angel, do you want to ask it? You were just brave enough to share our Uno game. I think you're probably brave enough to ask your question to Kobla directly. There you go.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Especially moving around so much as an adult. I know that you kind of just spoke to this, but maybe in more like direct step-by-step terms for those of us who are not so bold or so practiced.
Okay.
How did you connect to or find community around you in each new place that you ended up?
And that is an awesome question. So I'll give you a breakdown of every single place. All right. So of course I'm from DC. So being in DC, I'm good there, right? Nothing, I'm good. I go to Orlando, I go to, Miami to go move to Orlando. So Miami, I have people there. You know what I mean? I went to high school there, so I got a whole contingent of friends there. So that was community there. I moved to Orlando, come to find out my friends in Orlando, from Miami, a couple of them live in Orlando. So in Orlando, I had another contingent of friends through the connection of the network I had from high school. So now for that year that I'm there, I have a whole group of people that I can go to their home, you know what I mean? And they treat me like family and friends. So I moved from there, I go to Atlanta. My best friend lives in Atlanta. So now I have a whole contingency or group in Atlanta because of my best friend connection from Washington, DC, right? So I go there and now I know all of the friends that I meet through him and then all of the people I meet through other various networks that I have, mainly people who I grew up with that know other people that live there and we connect. And I think, Angel, one of the things is, like I've always been around people who are very strong in terms of character. So if they tell somebody that I'm coming, that person would take care of me in the other city. So then I move in Atlanta and I build a large contingent of friends, not to mention going to the gym and playing basketball, connecting with various people there, you know what I mean? Connecting with young professionals there, et cetera. And now we're playing on flag football teams, co-ed flag football teams. And every time there's a connection being built, right? So then when I go somewhere else, I move from Atlanta to Dallas. I know no one in Dallas. Come to find out, I do know somebody in Dallas. My friend who I went to high school with in South Florida, she lives in Dallas. One of my friends from DC also lives in Dallas. So I have an immediate connection. But when I first moved to Dallas, trust me, for the first year I'm in my apartment, I live downtown Dallas. And I was like, where is everybody at? I mean, I don't understand what's going on. I'm thinking a rush hour like DC, there's no rush hour. You know what I mean? It's super light. So what I found then when I was in Dallas is my mother was retired at the time. She's working in South Florida. She's actually volunteering for the Urban League. So she says, hey, there's a young professional group here. Why don't you see if there's one in Dallas? So I said, okay. And to be 100% candid, Angel, I was like, where are all the Black people when I was in Dallas? Because I was downtown and we weren't living there, right? So I go to one of the meetings and I see, oh, it's a large swath of young professionals that look like me, have the same mindset about community. And I begin to build relationships there, right? So I begin to build friends and that part of it helped me build community there. Then from there, when I moved to Austin, which I didn't think I was going to move to Austin either, but my boss was like, hey, so how do you think about being a director of operations in Austin? I'm like, no, first he asked about San Antonio. And I had been to San Antonio in the summertime. I was like, nah, that's too hot. I can't do it. I just can't do it. That's the desert for real. So anyways, I declined that one, moved to Austin, come to Austin, right? Work in Austin and took the Urban League connection to Austin. When I came to Austin, the team, when I went there, I went to a meeting just to see, how engaged people were, et cetera. And it was like, there weren't a lot of people. So I was like, well, I think I can fix that. And so long story short, I worked myself up to be the president. And then I was like, I need to compete with the Dallas and Houston chapters who used to have over 300 and 400 members. We had about 7, right? I was like, before I leave, we're going to catch up to those other groups. So long story short, Austin Urban League Young Professionals now has over 300 members. So that had that connection, right? So you got that connection there. And that's allowed me to meet various people because as the Urban League Young Professionals president, I was like, why aren't communities working together? I'm confused about this. You got all these nonprofits. You have to have people doing similar things. How come we're not coordinating more? And I just started reaching out once again, trying to connect to people and bring people together. And through that, now you have people who introduced me to Ben. And Ben got a connection through somebody I knew through the Urban League. So Angel, just to be 100% candid, I try to help as many people out as I can. Fortunately, I've been around people who support that and support me. And it's guided me. And that's the part of the journey where I got to take my hands off and just allow it to flow. That's guided me to move into these places where I'm able to connect with people and be supported and be okay with whatever happens and just embrace the place for what it is. I don't do too much comparison. Dallas is like this, is like that. I'm like, nah, Dallas is what it's for. And I'm here for a purpose. I might not know that purpose, but I'm here for that. And I'm willing to take that in. And now that I'm in Austin, I know there's a purpose. And now when I start to get more and more in tune with the angel, I know when it's time to leave and I know when it's time to stay.
That, I mean, all of us would be better if we could take a little fraction of that with us. What I took away from that, Angel, is that there's always somebody that you just don't know it maybe at first.
Right.
Kobla's got the proof. I see another hand up. It's Taich. Invite you to unmute yourself. Hey, Taich, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you. And thank you so much for the talk. I really enjoyed. I can relate a lot because I also move a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm actually in Berlin. I used to live in Austin.
Okay.
Anyways, my question is that, so I understand the important thing you mentioned is supportive community around you and being comfortable with changes, right? So I was wondering if you could kind of give us some example of like what kind of support did you find it most helpful when you are dealing with changes you felt uncomfortable with? So maybe so with that example, we can kind of use that to help build a supportive community around ourselves.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, sir. So when I was uncomfortable, I'll show you what I did. Hey, yeah, I don't know about this thing. Do you know about this thing? Oh, you know about that thing? Could you tell me about that thing? Okay, I'm going to call you again tomorrow because I don't know about this thing. Okay, you're going to answer the phone? You will answer the phone, though, because I do need some help. Okay. No, but you're going to answer? All right, I'll call you back tomorrow. But no, I think what it was is not only that, when I meet new people or when I interact with new people, having the humility to say that you don't know. And having the humility to also be open to suggestion and feedback when you don't know. A lot of times we get caught up, we know about that good old ego, I know everything. And I also like to debate, so I'll push back and forth. But even when I debate, I'm debating from the standpoint of I'm still listening to what you have to say, because if you're making a point that's valid, I'm taking it in. I learned that from my parents. They always pushed information and being able to take stuff in. And one of the things my stepfather always says is he's like, some people don't have good kids. He said straight up. Yeah, they don't have good kids. He's like, but with you, we never had to worry about. I didn't have to worry about you calling and saying you were in jail because you would listen to the feedback that we gave you and then you would take it and act on it. And that doesn't mean that I've done it right all of the time, but like now in my age or my, where I'm at in life, Marty comes in, he's filming something. If he gives me some feedback about something, I'm taking it. If you give me some feedback about something, I'm taking it. And I'm just going to say thank you. And I may know already, but I've learned, sometimes I just got to say thank you because for whatever reason, that message that you're giving, I'm supposed to be receiving it. And I'm supposed to be receiving it now. I may not know why, but I'm supposed to be receiving it. So being open that way, and you'll notice that when someone gives you feedback and advice and you just say thank you, even if you know, they'll be willing to give you advice again. And they're willing to be open with you for something else. And you'd be surprised at things that begin to flow in, if that helps at all.
There was a lot of nodding when you picked up that phone. People were really appreciative of the idea of just feeling empowered to make a phone call again in these days where everything's on email, everything's a Slack chat, everything's an iMessage. But I'll say, as someone who has a problem with perfection, saying I don't know is a hump for a lot of us to get over and to be comfortable with. So I appreciate that message for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, I'm going to say we're going to start to wrap things up here. Before we do that,
Selena had a question.
Selena has a question. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up because it blended with your party background. All right, Selena, you got the last question before, and then we'll wrap up after that.
Kobla, you're such an amazing speaker, and you seem to be so in tune with yourself and your emotions, and with your, the people around you and how to connect. But in times of struggle, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Like, what does self-care look like for you? I think we talk about that so much more readily with women, but I would love to hear what you do when you're feeling deflated or drained, or you're needing to like re-energize yourself, because you're such a charismatic, energetic, like obviously generous, giving person. Like, what does someone like you do to recharge your batteries?
Yeah, good question. I like that question. So I'm going to ping the men a little bit right now. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because not too often we seem to express ourselves emotionally, though as much as we like to act like we don't have those emotions, we most certainly have those emotions. We just don't articulate them very well. You'd be like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, what's going on, man? Are you upset? Are you angry? What's going on? I say all that to say is having that awareness to know when I feel off, and then sitting in that and embracing whatever that is, whether that's sadness, happiness. I actually have on, like right on the counter, there's the emotion wheel. It's sitting right on the counter over there, so that I can see it and look at it to see how I'm feeling about the various things. And then in the mornings, you know how you text people, be like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm like, nah, that's not, yeah, I forget. That's not how you feel. You know what I mean? What do you mean you're good? See, look, I'm not telling you a story. Marty just gave it to me, the emotion wheel, right? So with that, it's in the mornings, typically I wake up early and then I go back to sleep, but I'll wake up and meditate. And then for however long period of time that I meditate for, and then go back to sleep. Then I also go to the gym pretty regularly. So almost every day I go to the gym to make sure I have that balance. I am pretty jovial, so I like to laugh. You know what I mean? To be silly. You know what I mean? So if you're willing to be silly with me, I'm willing to be silly with you all day, every day. But the moments, like to your point, the moments where I feel like I just feel anxious today. Let me sit in this thing and let me embrace whatever this is. You know what I mean? And find out. Another thing that typically will change something, if I'm like, I'm not sure what is causing it, what in my subconscious is causing that, I'm just going to smile in the mirror. You'd be surprised what that does. If you just cheese in the mirror, it changes and adjusts how your neural pathways work. You know what I mean? So doing the things that adjust or getting an understanding of what is causing said emotion, and then sitting in that and embracing whatever that is. And here's the thing, wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. So if that means, if you're angry about something, it's okay for you to be angry about it. If you're upset about something, it's okay for you to be upset about it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the emotion whatsoever. And so I think I've gotten very comfortable with that, and knowing that it's also a short story, it's not a novel. So whatever that thing that I'm feeling, it's a couple pages long. But I'm the one that controls whether it's a couple pages long or it's a novel and it's a book. So making sure I'm aware to say, hey, I feel sad about this. I think this is why I'm feeling sad. And maybe I call you, Selena. I'm like, hey, I feel sad about this thing. You're like, why do you feel sad? Well, I think this, and that. And I talk it through and you're like, oh, well, yeah, okay. And then I'm like, yeah, I think I am okay. But we've walked through it together. You know what I mean? And once again, I have the support of you. And then I can process through and then move forward. So those days are very limited, because I think once again, it goes back to, let me embrace whatever this is, understand that everything does ebb and flow, and wherever it is, whether up or down, take it, open yourself up to it, breathe it in, and continue to move forward. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. I think just being okay with sitting in your emotions, that's such a huge step that I think we're all working towards, and being okay with maybe not being okay or being sad.
With not being okay. Absolutely. And last piece to that is, I will say that I've learned that, and I'm very much a person who has maneuvered in ways that have been very succinct to get to a goal. As I get older, I'm like, vulnerability is the gift that allows me to continue to move forward. So control is a wall that prevents the gift of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question.
Yeah, thank you, Selena. That was a tremendous question, one that maybe we're going to need to ask every time now, because that elicited such a great response. Kobla, it's true. You are so composed, and you brought so much wisdom. I was feeling very pressured. I looked at the emotion wheel. I was feeling very pressured coming into today. Yeah. I'm feeling, coming out of this moment right now, feeling pretty empowered. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for sharing of yourself and your story and your thoughts today. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of Austin's creative community. Thank you.
No, I definitely, Ben, once again, appreciate you, appreciate everybody and the whole group, the directorial group, Marty, for coming and setting everything up, and you all for once again giving me an opportunity to just, speak a little bit this morning. So I'm greatly appreciative of that. I would be grateful if everyone followed what we're doing with Break the Box. You can go to www.breakthebox.io. But long story short, we're just trying to break the housing system and make it equitable for everybody. And so that's the next journey. So I would love you all support. So thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Thank you for sharing that, the website as well. We'll make sure that's in the email that follows this up.
I wanted to say that one other thing that I wanted to mention, because someone put it in the chat, is when I look in the mirror and I see myself, I've taught recently that when I meet other people, to see myself in other people. And I think when you begin to take that step back and try to see yourself in other people, you begin to realize that when you love yourself, you love everyone else. And so I would like to tell everybody on the call that I absolutely 100% love you. I don't have to know you, because I look in the mirror and I see myself. So I love you and I appreciate you.
There's no better way to go out than on that note. Thank you all for being here today. We are going to play some music, and if you'd like to connect more with people, we're going to open up breakout rooms on the way out. But if you don't want to stick around for that, or you just need to move on with your day, we totally appreciate that too. We hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next month. Thank you again, Kobla. And take it away.
Here we go. And by popular request, it's Sonia's Big Girls. If I can get it to all that.